I'm Robert Vamosi, CISSP and Security Strategist at Synopsys.
And hello, my name is Chris Clark. I'm Principal Security Engineer at Synopsis.
And welcome to Fault Injection. Now, you're probably thinking, why do I need another security podcast?
That's a great question. There's so many of them out there, so many things, so many podcasts that talk about different technologies, new and upcoming events, but we're going to do something a little different this time.
Yeah, we're going to dig a little deeper. We're going to take some topics and really open them up and talk to experts and also draw upon our own experience. I bring to the table nearly 20 years of security experience. Chris?
20 years also. I mean, we've been in the industry for quite a while, know quite a few people that are out there. And that's one of the things that we're going to do differently. We want to bring these industry experts in and really dig deep into the topics we're going to be talking about. We're not going to just scratch the surface this time.
And a really broad range. So we're not going to focus on any one thing. If anything, we want to start addressing what does it mean to think and act with security in your life? What does that mean? Bruce Schneier talks about this concept of once you see the world through security lens, you see it very, very differently. So how does that work?
Well, there's lots of different views, right? You know, when we look at the psychology of hacking and hackers in this particular industry, there's a lot of different factors that come into play. What are they? Why are they important? And really, at the end of the day, what's the psychology behind that?
So you bring up an interesting point. You use the word hacker, and I think that word has been sort of misappropriated over the years. I like to think of hacking as taking something apart. And it's neither good nor bad. There are people who do it for the benefit of research and for knowledge, and there are people that do it for criminal enterprises and financial gain. Yeah. So I just want to be clear that we'll probably talk about both.
I agree. You know, when we talk about the white hats, the black hats, the gray hats, what is that?
Right.
I mean, many people in the industry, even some security professionals, have differing opinions on this. Let's dig into that. Let's make sure we understand what we're really focusing on, what the real challenges are.
Right. And so you bring up the psychology as well. Just as I said that there was a psychology around security, there's also a mentality around a hacker, how they look at things, how they start to deconstruct things the minute they see it. Here's a new piece of technology. How am I going to extract something from that maybe was unintended?
Well, and what you're talking about is really important because these type of people, hackers, for lack of a better term for now, until we dig into this, think differently. It's a very different process that they go through. What are the ideas that are driving that? How do we take a look and understand what the impact is to thinking differently, and how can you think differently?
You mentioned thinking differently. When you walk into a meeting with somebody, you mention it, I know, because I've heard you say it. What are some of the steps that you help them go through?
Well, there's a wide range of things. You know, when we look at what the software development practices are, what type of components they bring into their products, how they use their products in many different ways, ultimately what we start talking about is a supply chain. And I know we're going to talk about that a lot more later, but there are so many things that we want to focus on in that respect and tear each one of those apart and get a better idea of what that environment really looks like.
You're right. You stole my thunder because one of the things we want to do is do an overarching theme for a couple episodes and digging into this, what's called the cyber supply chain. What does that mean? And then individually, how does it affect specific verticals? And we can play that out because I think people have a concept of cyber supply chain, but maybe they don't see it in the way that we see it or the way they might want to see it in the future.
Or understand the importance.
Right.
When we really start digging into what surrounds us in our world, when we look at a TV, when we look at a car, when we look at our cell phones, what really makes up that component? Is it a system of systems? Is it software from many different manufacturers? And what are the implications of tying those together? And when we talk about hackers earlier, that's what they really get excited about. How do I get into that system and break it apart and take advantage of those individual components within?
Right. And one of the things we want to do is really start a dialogue. So there's an email address and there's a comment section. Feel free to use that. We want to incorporate your ideas, and in future episodes, we want to bring some of those into the show. We might even end up interviewing you.
Yeah, very much so. That actually I think what makes this podcast exciting. There are so many different views out there, so many different activities happening in the market. And we only bring 2 viewpoints to this. We want to get more. We want to bring all that in. We want to talk about what those challenges are, what other people are experiencing. So ultimately, so everybody can learn, because that's one of the greatest challenges we face from addressing cybersecurity is education. That's one of the things we have to take a look at and dig in much deeper.
To continue your point about different points of view, one of my mantras this year is security is subjective. And the idea that we all bring to the table different experience and we can learn from that. So that gets to the education component as well.
Yep.
So like if we just talk more about what we're experiencing and what we're seeing, we improve the baseline for security all around.
Well, and that drives to another point, which is getting to the core of the problem.
Right.
Everything that we look at is based off of software. How do we communicate those challenges around software? Many of us, many of you that may be out there may not even know what a CWE is or a CVE is. How do we share that information in a meaningful manner? And that's going to be one of the important factors that we focus on in some of these discussions in the future.
Right. So I hope you join us on this journey and look for our next episode.
Thanks for coming in.